Bethesda, one of the biggest disgraces of modern day gaming.
What is going on with Bethesda? Despite a ton of excitement and hype coming out of the summer showcase, I think that Doom trailer blew just about everyone away. The company still
Only the Doom trailer blew everyone away. Everything else looked kinda bad.
finds itself in a pretty odd spot right now. Starfield reviews are plummeting, but also Fallout
As they should. As they should.
4 has had a fairly game-breaking bug for nearly 2 months now, with very little movement from Bethesda to address that, and when looking
As you would expect from Bethesda, but don't you worry. I know when they're gonna address this bug and other issues and change the game once again. When Fallout London announces that they have fixed everything and they are ready to release soon, that's when Bethesda's gonna kick it into high gear and do stuff again.
Looking at Bethesda game studios in general, some of their games are just in kind of odd or precarious spots right now, and it's not entirely clear what's going to happen. I start at the bat, I personally find the current situation with Fallout 4 incredibly frustrating. From the onset, the next-gen update was a bit of a joke. Many PC users just flat out condemned this update outright, but for those on console, some of the FPS improvements brought to downtown Boston were genuinely game-changing, taking Fallout 4 from a laggy, constantly crashing mess to a far more stable and actually playable experience, particularly for those on the weaker Xbox Series S. The next-gen update basically made Fallout 4 a playable game for a lot of people. Sadly, that's kind of where the good news from this one ends, as even on release, this update had a ton of issues. Over time, of course, these issues were addressed with updates, but not all of them, because as of right now, 2.5 months after the next-gen update's release, Fallout 4 is still pretty broken, and arguably Fallout 4
Well, considering it has taken half a year for Starfield to implement an eat button, with like 100 people still working on it, maps and whatnot. Yeah, this seems normal. This seems like a Bethesda pace to me.
is a more broken game for many players compared to before this update. For console users right now, VATS is broken. You get these weird hit chances, so it'll go from 0 to the actual hit
Hey, this reminds me of Fallout 76.
chance, but it can be really frustrating trying to actually lock these in because when it's 0, it won't actually let you select that body part, but you can also just get straight up wall hacks while using VATS. If you like to explore by spamming the VATS key, you'll now be constantly locking onto enemies through walls. Unfortunately, these aren't true wall hacks. Your shots aren't going to actually.
By the way, this is horrible because I play stealth and snipers. So, when you're playing stealth and snipers in Bethesda games, you're typically moving pretty slow anyway, and you are spamming the VATS key pretty often, obviously. So yeah, if I was playing it now, this would be horrible.
Penetrate this wall, you'll just hit the wall instead. If you're playing the next-gen version and download any mod that edits NPCs, or perhaps more specifically, their face-gen data, your game will now stutter. So yeah, this is a fairly extreme example. This is definitely the most exaggerated version of this problem, but you can still clearly see
it doesn't matter if it's over-exaggerated. Any stutter in a game just makes it feel so bad.
Here, one side has the face-gen data edited, while the other just has a bunch of NPCs, and while both definitely have lower FPS, one is basically unplayable due to the lag and stutters, while the other is just lower FPS, but otherwise relatively stable. So right now, if you're playing Fallout 4 on the next-gen version, the more mods you have that are affecting or editing NPCs, the worse these stutters can get. And you can find online tons of videos and months of reports of fans having this issue. But right now, there's nothing you can do except delete a bunch of your mods. But editing NPCs is fairly common.
And the fun fact is, even if you delete your mods, that may not solve the issue because the mods still stay in place. It's just Bethesda magic, baby.
I mean, even the unofficial patch will do this, so you'd have to clear out a large chunk of your load order to get rid of these stutters. And that's all assuming you can even access your mods, because also for those on consoles, the mod menu or individual mod pages will often not work. The operation
Beautiful. As Bethesda intended.
Could not be completed error is even more prevalent than some of these other issues, as this is a two-pronged problem. Some will get this error when just trying to access individual mod pages, like just clicking on one mod in this menu, but you can mostly get around that just by restarting your console or restarting Fallout 4. And the far more egregious version is some users can't access the mod menu at all. Clicking the menu button will trigger this error, and it's due to some mods being deleted. So if you have a mod installed for the game that has since been removed from Bethesda, well, sorry, you can't actually access your mods menu anymore. The working solution as of right now is to just delete all of your mod data. That includes the broken one, so you can access the menu again, but it also includes all of the working ones, so you have to manually reinstall every single mod. And obviously,
Hey, if you're a Bethesda fanboy and you did not expect this in your life, what's wrong with you? This is a pride and parcel of Bethesda gaming.
If you're using a save game that actually requires that broken mod that you now have to delete, you can't really delete it because you might risk breaking your save game. This too is absolutely brutal because these are new issues. Mods being deleted but still in your load order only became a problem after the next gen update. The NPC stutter issue only came up after the next gen update. This was not a thing before this update. And like, yeah, sure, it's Bethesda, sometimes things are broken with an update. But in this particular situation,
Always things are broken with an update. I don't think there has been a situation where Bethesda updates something and it doesn't break everything. Not even including mods, just the game in general.
I feel like this is an egregious one. This next gen update dropped 2.5 months ago, and even the more recent update to Fallout 4 was on May 13th, nearly 2 months ago. So Bethesda Game Studios is just letting these problems exist in what is currently their most popular game for literal months at this point. And yeah, I would consider this stutter issue pretty game-breaking for a lot of people. And there is some insane irony here. Fallout 4 has a ton of bugs. If you have weapon debris enabled, you can just crash your game by shooting things. The next gen update didn't address any of those lingering
I did not know that. That is new to me. I had no idea that is a thing.
issues, but it did implement a bug that happens if you use the unofficial patch. So for a lot of players right now, if you're playing on the next gen version, you have to pick between using community mods that fix issues but now create a stutter, or deal with the issues that are still there but you don't have a stutter. It's either broken or broken. That's the main reason that many PC players are just downgrading to the old version of the game and not messing with the next gen update at all. And based off of the way things are trending right now, I wouldn't be surprised if the PC modding scene.
And you know what's the best part about this? The people who use the downgrade are like, oh no, it's actually all fine. You just don't need to update the game and then everything works. Oh my god, that is the worst excuse that you could ever come up with. Like, my god, is that sad.
Just never moved to the next gen version. A ton of really important mods were never updated for next gen. So now those updates still could happen, but it's been several months and we're not really getting close or anything. For me, I'm not even considering moving my main load order to next gen Fallout 4. There's just no reason to it. I have to cut out a ton of mods. So often we see these memes around Bethesda games specifically about how an update is one step forward, but
Someone commented previously that they have made it so whenever there is an update by Bethesda to any of their Fallout games, that the update gets downloaded as I forgot what it was, a Word file or something like that. So it just goes in the folder, but it doesn't do anything. And that's their solution to not completely having a bricked and useless game. Ain't that great? Ain't that great? The Bethesda experience, everyone.
2 steps back. Lots of times, this is pure hyperbole, but with next-gen Fallout 4, I almost think this may hold true. Some of the important changes were definitely made, especially for console users, but the sheer amount of brokenness and general user frustration that has come from this next-gen update are seriously making me question if it was worth it overall. Also, one of the pretty surprising situations we find ourselves in now is that
It was, because they needed to drop this at the same time as the Fallout TV series. They needed to do this. They had no other shot. They had no other chance. And again, it is my full belief, I 100% believe this, that there is not a single person that could be called talented left working for Bethesda. I think every single person left at Bethesda is a complete clueless hack that can't even do the most basic stuff. Look at their lead writer, complete idiot that goes on Twitter tirades about how great he is. And everyone else. Like, how do you screw this up so many times in a row? It is insanity. I really think that no one with talent is left in Bethesda, and the biggest talent is probably Todd Howard just straight up lying to people, and that's it. And that's not even that much of a talent.
Fallout 4 is the largely problematic game, while Fallout 76 has been thriving lately, and even the next update coming later this year to Fallout 76 looks incredible. But we also have this big unknown with Starfield. Is Starfield going to recover? Starfield finds itself in this unfortunate situation where, despite having tons of really solid parts and even some really interesting and fun quests, it didn't really connect.
Like which? I would really want to know.
Connect with the broader gaming audience, and even just with Bethesda Game Studios fans. Despite a record-breaking launch, Starfield is now one of the least played games out of the newer Bethesda releases. On Xbox, just Skyrim has less players than Starfield, both Fallout 4 and Fallout 76 are above it, and on Steam, it's the least played out of these games by a considerable margin. And perhaps even worse than that, on Steam right now, Starfield reviews are mixed overall, with recent reviews being mostly negative.
Obviously.
4% of the new Starfield.
The only reason Starfield is mixed in general is the fact that when Starfield launched, all the Bethesda fanboys obviously upvoted, even though didn't play the game more than an hour. That is also something to consider.
Reviews from the past month are negative right now. Nearly 2/3 of people are saying don't play this game or have something bad to say about this game. And that's of course after 6 months of updates and mod support being added. Most of this negativity comes from...
Bro, what kind of magical updates are we talking about? It's just bad bug fixes and, oh, we made characters not ugly. And then you look at the before and after and you're like, okay, so which is supposed to be the updated version that makes characters not ugly? And then they did a lighting update and it's literally the same thing. It's like, okay, which is supposed to be the good lighting? Because I can't tell. They're different, but they still both look like ass. It is so bad.
The recent paid mods implementation, but just generally, the game only has 57% positive reviews overall. That means nearly 70,000 negative reviews have been left for Starfield on Steam. A lot of people just didn't connect with this one. We just recently had some of the most exciting updates for Starfield, yet a variety of fixes and changes were added in 2024, and of course, mod support came just about a month ago in early June. But even with the release of official mod tools, the player count only went from a 6,000 average to a 7,000 average. Now of course, it takes months or even years for some of those really cool mods to come out, but I personally was expecting a larger bump after 6 months of updates and mod tools finally being here. It felt like this was kind of the moment a lot of us were waiting for people to temporarily return to Starfield, but not that...
Starfield also has the problem that it's not that modding actually made it to Starfield. It's the fact that no one wants to mod Starfield. That is number one. No one wants to do it. And number two is the fact that the mods are going to be paid mods. That's what's going to happen. No one wants to deal with that garbage. And the fact that a 120-minute mission costs $10 is absolutely unacceptable.
That many people did. And after speaking with several authors who have been using some of these new tools, while they were definitely upgraded compared to Fallout 4 and Skyrim, and many authors are very excited for some of the possibilities, there's also quite a few issues with Starfield's mod tools right now. Lip sync files aren't working properly, creating new points of interest can currently only be done by one mod at a time, you can't actually update creations, so you're going to need to delete them and then reinstall them to update, and even new stuff like creating planets is incredibly difficult to the point of basically being impossible right now. And just overall, there's not a ton of interest in Starfield. My dedicated Starfield videos don't do super well unless they're negative. Many creators have the exact same issue. And even in online discussions, Starfield...
Well, yeah, because the game's bad. There's not enough people who think that this game is good to even have an audience. And the game is probably never gonna actually be good, so what are we even talking about here, yeah? And by the way, even negative videos on Starfield are dropping off because, I mean, people just don't care. And that's good. That's good. People shouldn't care about something as bad as Starfield.
Starfield doesn't come up all that much unless it's negativity about the game. During the recent interview with Mr. Matty Plays, Todd Howard began to lay out the long-term plans for Bethesda games and how they're making this wait between games easier. This is starting with Starfield. We see smaller bits of official content getting added via the paid mod system known as Creations. Bethesda added in the Trackers Alliance faction more properly with their more recent update, and while this does feature one free quest, there's also one for sale, among a variety of other paid mods Bethesda has released themselves. And even just this past week, even more paid mods.
The new quest, by the way, if you know, is a complete bait and switch. It has a free part, which is the good part, by the way. It's actually at least decent. It's not a complete failure, effectively. And then there's the paid version that is 20 minutes, and the second part of the quest that has nothing of the appeal of the first part of the quest. Not saying that the first part of the quest had huge appeal, but hey, at least it wasn't your just typical fetch quest, and that's it. It was a bit more than that. It was like 3 parts of a fetch quest technically. So yeah,
mods were added to Starfield by Bethesda, as you can now buy a $3 skin pack to add desert camo to some of your weapons.
wow.
These paid mods haven't been going over super well, but that's only one part of Bethesda's longer term strategy, as the even more exciting part is Bethesda's desire for more expansions. As Todd Howard said, they want to do yearly expansions for Starfield.
Content-wise, we're looking at...
I'm not gonna lie, I love it. It's gonna be a huge boost to the channel when Shattered Space drops, and it's as bad as we all know it's gonna be.
Kind of like what we do with Far Harbor on Fallout 4. We're like, okay, this is a scope that works for, our development in doing this kind of annual story expansion.
By the way, the whole interview with Todd Howard is obviously a bunch of nothing, and it's a bunch of lies, and it's not even mostly concrete yeses and nos. It's PR speak to its absolute highest
type of thing. So really excited about that, and it lets us, kind of do some things the way we would in previous games.
I know things change, but would you say you're aiming to do like an annual story expansion every year?
I would say we want to, more or less, yeah. How long that continues, hopefully a very long time, but we're planning for the one after this, so there will be another one.
And doing this for as long as people play them is a pretty big deal. Over time, this could yield a ton more content coming out from Bethesda, but there is one big issue. Will people actually play these? Many aspects of this new plan from Bethesda get me really excited. There's a near endless amount of cool expansion content that they can do.
By the way, I'm not buying Shattered Space. Hell no, I'm not even gonna try and play it. I'm just gonna watch someone else play it. And then I'm gonna laugh about how pitiful the story writing is.
But it feels like, due to where Starfield stands right now, fans may simply reject some of this post-launch support. It was the biggest launch of any Bethesda game ever, but are people coming back? The big test will be with Shattered Space later this year, but personally, I'm really questioning if fan interest will return. Looking at Google Trends for 2024, Starfield searches have been passed by both Fallout 76 and even Skyrim at this point. And even just looking at the new Shattered Space trailer on IGN's page, it has less views than the Fallout 76 trailer, the new Avowed trailer, and significantly lower views than both Doom and Indy.
Oh man, Indy is gonna be horrible.
Looking at IGN because sometimes the official Xbox or Bethesda pages will run the trailers.
Imagine the old Indiana Jones, but it's the woke indie garbage with the diarrhea of destiny.
As ads, which will skew the view count considerably. IGN is just uploading these trailers after they debut at the showcase, and Starfield is simply not putting up the numbers it did previously. And for me, this really sucks. I'm personally incredibly excited for Shattered Space and honestly want to be making more Starfield content, but the interest simply isn't there right now. And I do have this feeling with Shattered Space that things will branch in one of two ways. Either Starfield will make a healthy comeback as the DLC lands with fans, or maybe people—
Juice, please, what a take. Oh, when the DLC drops, it's one of two things is gonna happen. Good or bad. Wow, what a take. Mind blown, thank you.
People have already moved on, and the player count may just continue to dwindle, merely seeing a temporary bump around the release of Shattered Space.
It's gonna see a bump, obviously. Starfield is so legendary bad at created channels.
Those weird situations where I'm genuinely having a hard time gauging if people will even be interested in this one. I feel like it's one of those expansions that Bethesda really needs to knock out of the park. But at the same time, let's not forget, Starfield itself was a critical success. The game got very good to potentially even great reviews. It's on the fan side where—
Oh wow, look at that. All the games journalists who are afraid to not get the next installment of Elder Scrolls are afraid to give it a bad review. Wow, that's unexpected. It's not like this has happened multiple times before. It's not like Bethesda is known to not give critics who have rated their stuff poorly in the past. Well, Bethesda has not given critics who have rated their stuff poorly in the past codes. It's not like this is a well-known thing.
Things slid. So Shattered Space will have this unique challenge of really needing to win back quite a few Starfield fans. Although, thankfully, many of you already own this since you already bought the premium edition, so the fact that you're getting the expansion for free should seriously help with player counts. But at least in my opinion, if
That is so hilarious. No, you get an expansion free, bro. They did not expect this thing to do well. It's just not even close.
Starfield's player count remains somewhere around here. I can't imagine Bethesda is going to continue with their plan for yearly expansions for this title. It might simply not be worth it. But then we also have this somewhat curious situation with no proper release dates for anything. From Bethesda alone, we know we are getting Shattered Space, Indiana Jones, and a new Fallout 76 Milepost Zero DLC this year. But as of right now, none of these things have release dates. For Milepost Zero, this isn't super surprising. It just went into testing on the public test server, and Bethesda doesn't normally drop Fallout 76 release dates this far in advance. But when it comes to Shattered Space specifically, this is a pretty odd one to me. We heard from Tom Warren in the past that Shattered Space was targeting September, while Indiana Jones was targeting December. So perhaps the plan is just to have a bunch of release date trailers at Gamescom, but if Shattered Space is truly coming in September, Gamescom would only really give you about a month or so heads up on its release. Could it be that these games are actually slated for a bit later in the year, with a possibility that Indy gets pushed to 2025? Bethesda already has the developer direct in early 2025, so it wouldn't really shock me that much to see it pushed to Q1 or Q2. And this really isn't a commentary one way or another. It's not necessarily a bad thing to not have release dates for these games. I was just genuinely surprised by this. I thought there was definitely going to be a Shattered Space release date because Bethesda does that almost every year. E3 is when we get the dates for stuff, but for some reason this year they didn't do that. But then of course, the last two big games that many fans have been asking about is what happened to that Fallout 3 remaster and the Oblivion remaster, potentially even.
Oh god, I hope both of them don't drop, because it's gonna be so bad. No one is gonna play Oblivion. Oblivion, I said this so many times, I'll say it again. There are games that are just fond memories of us, of our childhoods. I played Morrowind, I did not play Oblivion. But, you know, and I have good memories of playing Morrowind. But that thing is not gonna do good with the current, you know, amounts of gamers and what we expect from games. No one is gonna enjoy a system where you're swinging a sword and nothing happens and then you die and you have no idea what the hell is happening. Because Oblivion and Morrowind have the hidden dice mechanic. When you swing your sword, you actually roll a dice and see if it lands. And you have no... People don't even know this is a thing, right? I didn't know as a kid that that's a thing. And people are just not going to accept these mechanics, I think. Fallout 3 is also the worst Fallout remake, because Fallout 3 is worse than 4, okay? It's not that great. Listen, when you have multiple companions that are radiation proof and they can't go into the stupid chamber to put in a fucking 4-digit code, what was it, 5 digits or 6 digits? I don't remember. Because it's your goddamn destiny. It's not gonna be great, okay? Fallout 3 has
remake. It's
one part that people like, and that's nuking or not nuking Megaton. It has some other cool choices through, but I mean, it's worse than 4. Let's be completely real. People want a remake of New Vegas. That's what people want. But Todd Howard is, no, my baby, my gem, Fallout 3, my magnus opus, I need it. Shut up, Todd. Anyway, that was Juicehead, and that's pretty much it. Bethesda, downward spiral continues. Bye-bye.